On a quiet Sunday morning in 1963, four young girls walked into a church in Birmingham, Alabama. They never knew that their names would become connected to one of the most important moments in American history. What happened inside that church shocked a nation, changed conversations about equality, and left a memory that would last for generations. This is the story of the Birmingham church bombing. History is often remembered through the moments that change the world forever. Some events become turning points, forcing people to look closely at the challenges of their time. On September 15th, 1963, a quiet Sunday morning in Birmingham, Alabama, became one of those moments. A day that began like any other would become a painful chapter in American history. In 1963, Birmingham was a city experiencing deep divisions. Many African American families faced unfair treatment and barriers in their everyday lives because of segregation. At the same time, more people were beginning to demand equal rights, dignity, and opportunities through peaceful efforts for change. In the heart of Birmingham stood the 16th Street Baptist Church. For many families, the church was more than a building. It was a place of worship, community, learning, and hope. It provided a space where people could gather together and support one another during difficult times. On that Sunday morning, families arrived at the church dressed in their best clothing for worship. Children greeted their friends, parents shared conversations, and the familiar sounds of a Sunday gathering filled the air. For those inside, it appeared to be a normal day filled with faith and family. Inside the church, people prepared for the day's activities. Children attended Sunday school, choir members prepared, and families settled into their seats. The church had always been an important part of the Birmingham community, bringing people together and offering a place of encouragement. Beyond the church walls, Birmingham was going through a period of major change. Across the city, many people were peacefully working toward a future where everyone would have equal rights and opportunities. The struggle for civil rights was becoming one of the most important issues in America. Among those attending the church that morning were four young girls whose names would later become remembered around the world. Addie Mae Collins, Denise McNair, Carol Robertson, and Cynthia Wesley were students, daughters, sisters, and friends. They were young people with dreams, families who loved them, and futures ahead of them. That morning, the church was filled with ordinary moments. Families gathered together, children learned lessons, people prepared for worship. No one inside knew that the peaceful Sunday morning would soon become a moment remembered throughout history. Outside the church, Birmingham continued its usual routine. Cars moved through the streets, neighbors greeted one another, and families went about their day. But beneath the ordinary rhythm of the city was a larger struggle over equality and justice that was shaping the nation. For many people in Birmingham, churches represented hope. They were places where communities could come together, share their experiences, and believe in the possibility of a better future. The 16th Street Baptist Church stood as one of those symbols of hope. As the morning continued, people inside the church focused on their service and their families. It was a moment that appeared ordinary, filled with familiar faces and familiar routines. But outside, a hidden act of hatred was about to change the lives of many people forever. Shortly before the church service continued, an explosion struck the building. The peaceful morning was suddenly interrupted, leaving the community shocked and searching for answers. The event became a moment of deep sorrow for Birmingham and for people around the world. Emergency workers and community members rushed to help. Families gathered outside, hoping for news about their loved ones. The city that had already faced years of division now faced a moment of grief that would be remembered for generations. Four young girls lost their lives that day. Addie Mae Collins, Denise McNair, Carol Robertson, and Cynthia Wesley. Their families, friends, and community members were left to mourn a loss that would never be forgotten. News of the tragedy quickly spread beyond Birmingham. Newspapers across the country reported the event, and many Americans began paying closer attention to the struggle for civil rights. The tragedy became a turning point that would influence the nation's conversation about equality and justice. In the days that followed, Birmingham was filled with sadness and reflection. Families gathered together, community leaders spoke about the need for peace, and people across the country began asking how such a tragedy could happen.
The loss of the four young girls touched people far beyond the city of Birmingham. The families of Addie Mae Collins, Denise McNair, Carol Robertson, and Cynthia Wesley faced deep grief. They remembered their daughters not only because of the tragedy, but because they were young people with personalities, dreams, and lives that mattered. Across Birmingham, Churches and communities came together to support one another. Many people believed that the answer to hatred was not more hatred, but a stronger commitment to justice, peace, and equality. Investigators began working to understand what had happened. Evidence was collected, witnesses were interviewed, and officials searched for those responsible. The investigation would become one of the most closely followed cases connected to the civil rights era. While the investigation continued, Birmingham itself was changing. The tragedy increased national attention on the struggles faced by African American communities and strengthened calls for civil rights reforms. Many people who had previously remained silent began speaking out. The bombing did not happen in isolation. It came during a period when many African Americans were demanding equal rights through peaceful demonstrations, community organizing, and legal challenges. The events of 1963 forced the nation to confront the reality of racial injustice. Across America, newspapers and television reports brought Birmingham into homes everywhere. Many people who had never visited the city began learning about the challenges faced by its black community. The names of the 4 young girls became symbols of the human cost of discrimination. Their story reminded the country that behind every historical event were real families and real lives. Leaders and ordinary citizens continued working for change. They organized meetings, peaceful protests, and campaigns calling for laws that would protect the rights of all Americans. The Birmingham church bombing became one of the moments that pushed the nation closer to major civil rights reforms. It showed the importance of confronting injustice and protecting the dignity of every person. After the bombing, investigators faced the difficult task of finding those responsible. The case required patience, determination, and cooperation from many people who wanted the truth to be known. For many years, the search for justice continued. The passage of time did not erase the importance of the case or the memories of those who were affected. The families of the victims continued to remember the 4 girls and speak about the importance of equality, peace, and justice. Over time, the church itself became a symbol of resilience. Instead of being remembered only for tragedy, it became a place that represented courage, faith, and the strength of a community that continued moving forward. The story of Birmingham was not only about what happened on one tragic day, it was also about the people who responded with courage and continued working toward a more equal future. The 4 young girls remembered from that Sunday morning became part of a larger story about courage, justice, and the struggle for equality. Their names continue to be spoken because their lives represented dreams that were never forgotten. The 16th Street Baptist Church continued to stand as a place of faith and remembrance. Over the years, visitors from around the world came to learn about its history and the lessons connected to it. The story of Birmingham also showed the power of communities. Ordinary people, parents, students, workers, and leaders played important roles in pushing history forward. History is not only about remembering what happened, it is also about understanding why it happened and what lessons can be carried into the future. More than 6 decades later, the Birmingham church bombing remains one of the most significant events of the civil rights era. Its story reminds us of the importance of compassion, equality, and protecting human dignity. Every year, people continue to visit Birmingham to remember the lives affected by the events of 1963. These visits are not only about looking back at a painful chapter of history, but also about recognizing the strength of those who continued forward. The story of the 4 girls continues to be shared in classrooms, museums, and communities because their lives remain an important part of understanding American history. The lessons from Birmingham extend beyond one city. They remind people that communities can overcome difficult moments when they stand together with courage and determination. The church that once became known around the world because of tragedy now also represents resilience, remembrance, and hope. The names Addie Mae Collins, Denise McNair, Carol Robertson, and Cynthia Wesley remain remembered, not only because of how their lives ended, but because their lives mattered. The events of September 15th, 1963 changed Birmingham forever.
A place of worship became the center of a national conversation about justice, equality, and the future of America. Although the tragedy brought deep sorrow, it also showed the strength of people who continued to believe in change. Communities came together, voices grew louder, and the movement for civil rights continued forward. Remembering history allows future generations to understand the challenges of the past and recognize the importance of building a more respectful and equal society. The story of Birmingham is not only a story of tragedy, it is also a story of courage, resilience, and the power of people who refuse to give up hope. More than 60 years later, the memory of those affected continues to inspire conversations about justice, kindness, and equality. History remembers them, and their story continues to teach the world.